Okay, everybody, welcome. It's Tuesday, September 17th, and this is the Board of County Commissioners work session. And today, up first, we have an overview of the new web-based county code. Jeanette and Alex are here. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having us. Jeanette Jones, clerk to the board of county commissioners, and with me here at the table is Alex Sanchez, who started this project when he was an intern in administration, and now he's moved to community development, and he's here to give you an overview of the new website for the Pickens County Code, which includes the land use code and all the other chapters of the code. And as I stated in my memo, staff has been working the last few months, Alex, on creating a new web-based version of the Pickens County Code. And this version will hopefully, I think we're hopeful that it'll be more user-friendly, viewing, search capabilities, etc. And Alex will go over that with you. So I'm going to turn it over to him.
Excellent, thank you. So first, I'd like to acknowledge both Jeanette and Cindy. This kind of started with the Policy and Procedures Manual. Jeanette saw that the features that we had in that Policy and Procedures Manual could be applied to the larger code. So she really had the vision for this when it started. Cindy, as Jeanette had mentioned, there was a transition from the admin office to ComDev. Cindy saw value in being able to search through the land use code and some of these other features and allowed me to continue this. There's a couple individuals, Brian Davis, Catalina Cruz, and Haylene Berglow, who were all very good end user testers that got into the system and were able to test some of the functionality and work through some of those bugs. The ComDev staff, the attorney's office, and the admin office have all been very helpful in creating this. So this was not just a project by me, but an organization-wide project. So if you look at the screen here, what I have pulled up to one side is the county code currently that we have. This would, if the public were to go to I want to, they would find the county code section and
Was this live? Can I get it on mine right now if I tried?
you could get to the current county code, but you cannot get to this version. We'll talk about the rollout and how that'll go to the public. So the county code on the left is what the public is used to seeing, and this would be the new version to the right. So we see here, again, as all the titles are listed on the left, we have the similar titles listed on the right. The one caveat I'd say is the land use code, instead of being broken out individual chapters, it is now all in one title essentially, and that allows for searching of the entire land use code. So that was something that we heard from staff that would be very beneficial. For the public, I'd just like to mention we have created how-to documents. So if you go in there, we have how-to videos. Currently, a video is created of kind of a comparison, exactly what I'm showing you now. There's another video for how to navigate, how to utilize the search feature, how to open tables, and how to print. As we get feedback from the public for issues they're having, we'll be receptive to that and create how-to videos to help address some of those reoccurring issues. So now actually getting into the website, I'll open up the land use code and show some of the features that this now provides us, and I'll go ahead and open it up to the larger screen here. So for the land use code, our search is now in the top right here. One of the things that in community development we hear a lot is, which zone district am I in? Now that can be kind of difficult if you're just a general public trying to figure out. So what you could do now in the land use code is merely type in zone district and search for that term. It's going through the entire land use code and finding any time that that term is referenced. So we see here it is referenced in Chapter 2, Chapter 3, Chapter 4, the beginning of Chapter 3, Chapter 6, Chapter 7. So already within that search, we were able to find 5 different chapters within the land use code that it's referenced, which I think is very great, because if we were to look at the old county code, that would require you either opening up Chapter 3, Zone District, and reading through each line to find where that term is referenced, and you'd have to open up each of these chapters individually. So we were able to get away from that and now just use the entire land use code as a search tool. So if we were to say go into Chapter 3, the Zone District, one of the nicer features that we have now are tables, and they're a little bit better readability to them. So what the public can do now is, if they were to click on this little open spreadsheet link in the top right corner, it opens this into an individual web page where you can really look at this, you know, in a better view, because we recognize some of the tables that are in the land use code or the county code are a little difficult to read. So we've really tried to work to make them easier to read and access for the public to view as well. So coming back into land use code, one of the nice things we have is a navigation feature. So here, if I were to look at, say, section 3-20, I can click into this section and view that entire section in its full text there. But one of the feedback that we receive from staff is sometimes it's beneficial to just look at a subsection individually. So if I just wanted to look here at this 3-20-20, I can click on this link and I'm able to access just this section alone without all the other sections as well. So for those longer sections in the land use code that I'm sure you've come across from time to time, it'd be very beneficial to just be able to access that one part of the land use code section versus having to view that whole subsection at once. As we continue on, some of the nice features at the bottom here, on all web pages, a link to the how-to documents are always at the bottom of each page. Also with a link to return to that directory of the title and then the overall county code directory. For those who are going to be looking to do amendments to the county code, we clearly call out anybody looking to amend the county code, please reach out to Jeanette Jones to get the most current version. This is a view-only version for the most current, but anyone looking to do amendments, we still recommend going through Jeanette and that established process. We will also develop an email address for this website, so that way as the public runs across issues, they can send that feedback to us and we can look to address it. Now, while we're talking about the search capability, there is a bit of a limitation, and that is conveyed in the how-to documents. But essentially from the county code directory, if I were to click into Title 8, I can search within the complete Title 8, but I couldn't search within Title 5, 6, 7, and 8 by just doing a search in that. The limitation we have is you have to select the title and search within that complete title, but we don't have the complete county code searching capability yet. That is something we'll look towards adding if we have that capability, but for right now that is a limitation, and we convey that in the how-to documents to the public as well. That's really all I kind of wanted to convey, some of the nice new features. I'd open it up to your guys' feedback if there's any changes or anything else that you'd like us to consider at this point, and then afterwards we can talk about kind of the rollout to the public and how we see that.
I think it'll be something fun to play with. Go in and play with it and see how it works.
So just to clarify, the search limitation is I can't look for, urban and rural area and then do a search on campaign contributions. I have to go out and figure out which part of the code.
Yes, okay. So, if we're looking here at the website and I were wanting to search, just unfortunately the way it's built out, because it's so large, the land use code, just updating that, there's a little bit of a lag to it because it's such a large site that we've created. So it was, I was a little bit hesitant of creating a complete site that had that capability that I felt we might compromise in some of the other features that we have now.
Because it would take forever to find
yes, the loading speed, the downtime. So that was ultimately one of the trade-offs that we made. But if that is a desire for the commissioners going forward, we can definitely look to see what that would take.
I don't think so. Okay. Will there still be like a PDF version of the full code if somebody wanted to do like a word search just to figure out where even in the code something existed?
Yep, so the master version will be maintained by Jeanette as it is currently, but what the public would be used to pulling up those PDF versions, those would no longer be accessible on the web. It would instead direct you to these websites where you can still do that similar feature. You could search, or you could do a Control F and then type in that term to find it. So this still allows for that. It's similar to that PDF, and just you're accessing it in a bit of a different way.
Steve, did you have a comment?
Well, having searched through the old land use code for things, I think this will be a great improvement, and I look forward to trying it out.
Great, yep. We've heard positive feedback from the Community Development Department that it is a lot easier to access the information they need and find it. And sometimes they're finding more information than they thought they would because of the ability to look through the full land use code and not limiting yourself to just one chapter. So that's one of the great things we think or hope the public will utilize as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to ask, with a nod to the other presenters who are coming in for our next presentation regarding the climate emergency. I was just thinking, if I were to try to search climate action plan or climate consequences in our land use code or in our code for the entire thing, how would I find that, just as an example?
So yep, I've selected the Title 8 land use code. And just in the top, I'm going to merely put climate to see what all comes up with even that. and then it's a simple enter search, and finds we have nothing in our.
That'll change.
I don't think it's in the land use code, it's in the county,
Oh, so, okay, where else? So if
Part
we're
of the
gonna
county.
search the county,
in the county website.
okay, so let's,
Ah,
so
so
we're not
yeah,
gonna find it
that
here.
there's still a separation
think
between what's accessible on the county website in this form and the county code and everything that's here. This is just pulling up that county code. So if it's referenced in a part of the website in another area, that will still stay
It'll
there.
take us there, okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So this sounds like it's more easily searchable, it's broken down into bite-sized pieces. People, as long as they can navigate to the right place to do their search,
Yeah.
and it looks pretty clear.
And that's why we have provided these how-to documents, which again, I'd recommend anybody in the public or internal. We try and develop for the search to specifically call out kind of the issues that we have or the limitation between searching just within a title. And then also the navigations and accessing those sub-pages or the longer code should you want to. So that's where we really tried to help the public learn that.
Kelly?
Does the public need to have any special plugins or use a particular browser to access these how-to?
Nope. So the how-to videos are on YouTube, and then they're just integrated in with this Google site. It being a Google site, there is no special application or anything required to access it. Mentioning kind of the rollout plan, we're going to take the feedback that comes from you guys if there's any updates or changes that need to be made. Really work through all day tomorrow to figure out what that rollout is, and we'd like to go live by Thursday, understanding that as the public sees this, they are going to want access to this, and we don't want a lot of delay between when we present to you and when we roll out. And we've already gotten kind of sign off by everybody internally, the various departments, that it meets their needs. And so, again, coming to you is that final kind of confirmation, and then we'd look to the public within the next couple days.
Okay, anything else? Anyone else? Yes, so any browser will work with this. It's going to go live probably, hopefully by the end of the week. How is this going to work for the people that are contributing to it and keeping it? It's a living document, so people are going to be working with this from here on out. Is it going to be easier for them as well to maintain this?
Yep. So maintaining of this will still remain in Jeanette's hands as it has been in the past. There's maintaining. There was a couple trade-offs ultimately with maintaining this because it is a larger site and a little more robust than what we had previously. That takes a little bit more on the maintaining of it and where we have to go update. But we've kind of developed a system internally that will allow for that to be a little bit easier and more streamlined process than we originally anticipated. And that's why, again, we call out for anybody looking to make amendments to it that they reach out to Jeanette, because this is only a current version view as. Any amendments or anything like that, that's a completely different process. And we've talked about developing how-to videos as well for the public or anybody internally who's looking to make amendments and where they should reach out to.
Excellent. So we've got going live, we've got where it will be maintained. Any other future steps or next steps or expansions, or you think you got a comprehensive thing? It's its own little galaxy.
Yeah.
Comprehensive thing. I like
Universe.
that.
The nice thing about Google too is they send out updates quarterly. So since the beginning of this project to today, there was a couple updates that they have sent out that we've implemented into this. So we'll constantly be looking at anything Google does send out and seeing if it's a value to add to the website. And if it is, we'll take steps to make that happen. But currently there are no other features that we see adding in. So, yeah.
Excellent. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Good project.
Thanks for
Jeanette.
presenting.
Good job.
Well
Yeah,
done.
and I would like to acknowledge Alex. This was a lot of work. All that language. We have the second largest land use code in the country. I think the other one's down in Florida, somewhere in a resort area. And all this language, literally, he had to move from the old code to the new code, paragraph by paragraph format.
Be blind
It,
now.
Yeah.
it was a huge amount of work, so thank you to
Good job.
Alex for
Well, we always like to be number one. If you've identified who the Florida one is and how many pages do we need
See if
to
we can
add?
one up
Yeah, you could approve more code amendments, yeah.
Luckily now I'm pretty in tune with the land use code because I've read it so many times. So I know those areas we could
Training for the
expand.
job.
That's probably the greatest benefit from the whole thing is that you're now the polymath on our code.
Something like that.
Let 'em go anywhere.
Encyclopedia, right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for
Thanks,
your time.
Jeanette.
Thanks.
Well done. Okay, coming up next, we have the discussion of a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners endorsing the declaration of a climate emergency and requesting regional collaboration to county climate change. Did I say that wrong? Cindy and Zach are here. Thank you for coming in. This is exciting. It's been pointed out to me, this is the most responsive this county's been to a request from the citizenry in terms of quickness in my time on the board. But didn't they just talk to us on Wednesday?
Wednesday, but you got lucky, there was a cancellation of a major item on our agenda.
Oh, see, there was a cancellation, and that's how you shoehorned this in. Okay.
Cindy Hubin, Community Development, and I'm here with Zach Hendricks, who is our temporary admin assistant, and we're so lucky to have him with us. And Zach took it upon himself in response to the children who came to visit with the board, and with all the other activities in the valley going on with the emergency ordinances for climate change and the immediacy of that, to get this before you. So I'm going to turn it over to Zach, who deserves all the credit for getting this here so quickly.
Welcome.
So as you previously mentioned, you heard last week from the youth of Pickens County asking for a climate emergency resolution. This would follow on the back of the town of BOCC, who recently declared it. They were only the 4th in the state to have declared a climate emergency. And in total, there are only 32 government entities that have declared a climate emergency in the United States. About 1,000, a little bit over 1,000 total worldwide, though that number is a little misleading because the entire government of Argentina has previously declared this as well. And it's in response to the fact that Aspen has seen a 1.1 degrees Celsius increase in temperature since 1940. However, 0.8 degrees of that has been in the last 40 years alone, so this is exponentially increasing. And at the current rate that we are going on, we'll see a 5.4 degrees Celsius increase by 2080, so it's a pretty dramatic temperature increase that we're looking at. And that'll have major ramifications for the economics and the livelihoods of the citizens of the county going forward. And so this resolution is really just to declare and recognize the devastating impacts of climate change and provide a justification for any future actions the board may wish to do or any budgetary decisions you might like to make in the future going forward.
Great, thank you. Thanks for setting that up. So the nice thing for us is that we were warned, and the county has been working on this for many, many years already. It'd be great to get just that reflects the recap of what's been accomplished. I guess the discussion today could be about what do we do next? What's the next step? So I don't know where you want to go from there, if there's time for a question or if you want to keep presenting.
Well, I'm happy to jump in and say that we responded to a greenhouse gas inventory that was done by Corps initially in 2014, and then developed our own Pickens County Climate Action Plan that was adopted in 2017 by the Board of County Commissioners. And in that climate action plan, we took the approach of going department by department to see what could be accomplished. And as part of that, as you know, with our infrastructure as we go forward, we look at being as responsible as we can with our own building design and construction, and this building is a perfect example of that. We look at that in every new opportunity that we have. We're looking very seriously at that in terms of airport design and future airport infrastructure. As far as my department is concerned, and our list of goals and action items through the Climate Action Plan, you will very shortly see in front of you not only land use code amendments dealing with solar accessibility and orientation of sites, but regulations and requirements around renewable energy. And then also with the building department, all the changes to the addendum, if you will, for the energy code that will come into play. Many, many, many years of workshops that we've had, and the board's direction to get to net zero by 2030 and what that entails with our regulations. And that'll be coming back before you, I believe, in October 23rd. Thank you.
Great,
So,
thank you. Do
Yeah.
you have any,
I think Kelly can
Kelly,
I'll
and
go
then-
last. Oh, wait.
Okay. Well, thanks for turning this around so quickly. And Zach, you have kids, don't you?
I do not
think-
know.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe you did.
I grew up here, so I've seen the
Okay.
changes.
Yeah,
as
well, I
grew up.
appreciate that context because I'm 41, so in my lifetime, we're seeing these dramatic increases. And, I have a 2.5-year-old daughter and a 2.5-month-old son. So for me, the personal urgency and impetus, couldn't hit closer to home. And I was thrilled to see the children show up last week. I hope it launches a lifetime of activism for them, that it serves them well. And I know our board will be responsive. So hopefully their memories of a early success will carry them through. Looking at this resolution, I think a couple of things jump out to me that I might want to propose to include for perhaps strengthening it. One thing I think would be perhaps an equity statement, just acknowledging the fact that, the burdens of climate change aren't always fairly shared, and that our efforts to take steps for climate action should be shared across our whole community so everyone benefits from them. And I think we're already doing that when we're looking at things like our affordable housing partnerships to try and include energy efficiency in those projects starts to get at that goal. So that is work that we've already embarked on. Something else that I thought maybe under our bullet point list for consideration by the board would be a reference to fleet and efforts for, electrifying our fleet where we have opportunities. And then also consideration for looking at our procurement code and how, we are making responsible spending decisions given having, $100+ million budget where we put our money towards to help align us with climate action goals as well.
great, thank you for that. Anyone else? George?
Yeah, I was going to say that, given the students that came before us, I think what that shows in the local communities is that we really, sort of the classic adage, think globally but act locally, is even more important now than it's ever been, given the current administration and their lack of concern of climate change and clean air and clean water. So it's up to, I think, localities, communities, municipalities and counties and states to take the lead on this. Corporations are doing this as well, but we certainly can't rely on the federal government to work on this. On the other hand, I noticed that we did get an email from Ruthie Brown, who's been very involved in pursuing climate legislation, and we haven't really discussed this, the federal legislation on HR 763, which is the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. So I don't know, at some point we want to delve into that and perhaps have a resolution on that, or certainly a letter of support to our delegates.
I think are we signatories to the Citizens Climate Lobby? I think Aspen may be a citizen member. I thought Pitkin County was also, and
Or are we individually signed, I think?
we could check that, because it's possible we've already added
Could be.
ourselves in, but it'd be nice to take more of a stand on this. I would think that's a welcome conversation.
Can I just add to George's?
Please.
I think maybe at a future work session soon, we can have Ruthie come in, if she's available, and actually present this so the public hears more what this is, because there's been a lot of people who misinterpret it and are like against it, because it's like another, the people are concerned. So maybe I'd like to have Ruthie come in and give us a further explanation, so.
And we can
share.
invite Mona Newton as well, only because I know they're been,
She's working with Ruthie on,
right, they're.
so maybe we
involved in
can
that.
reach out to Ruthie and have her come in.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea because it may be that down the road, we may be able to pick and choose parts of this act that may be applicable and for the Pickens County to pursue just on our own.
Yeah, so I think if we could do that with Ruthie, I don't know how available she is, but I think that'd be great, now that she's a new grandma.
Steve?
After the students spoke to us, I went online and I started looking up what other cities and counties have done. And there's a wide range of resolutions and proclamations that different cities did. Seattle has a much longer, lengthy document. Boulder County has just a proclamation, and the city of Boulder did a resolution, which is somewhat different wording. Everybody tailored the wording to their own community, which is what in our resolution, it's tailored to Pitkin County. So I thought it was interesting, they all are endorsing the same general effort across the globe, using their own wording to tailor it to their own community. I do notice that on the title of the official title, they talk about the collaboration part, and in our last therefore be it resolved paragraph, it says just regional collaboration to counter climate change. And in the actual resolution that's being sort of the template for all the other groups, it talks about collaboration of an immediate just transition and emergency mobilization effort to restore a safe climate. And so we don't have the words about the just transition and restoring a safe climate. And we might want to have our words more reflect what the actual document is that's being circulated around the country.
Could you further explain what that first part of that was?
Well,
Just transition? Is
well,
that
the entire title of it is,
I just wanted to see what that means. I don't,
Going from a coal-based economy to a renewable
just,
economy.
is that what it said, just transition?
The just transition refers to a portion of that equity, but it kind of, the reason that we omitted it is because it made a lot of references to the Green New Deal, and we didn't feel it was appropriate to reference something that is not actually a government policy anywhere. It talks about creating jobs using renewables. It talks about making sure that all low income, and the scope of it was so broad that we really wanted to narrow it down and just focus on climate change and tackling this one major issue that's facing everybody. And we felt that if we wanted to go into social equity, that would be appropriate in a separate resolution.
do you think we should include the words restore a safe climate to ours? We could tack that on. So we could say regional collaboration to counter climate change and restore a safe climate.
And we could even pull in our strategic planning statement about a safe and healthy community
Must have
and
had it.
relate it and a flourishing natural environment. So we could pull that in with
Yeah,
the
kind of
restoring safe climate.
tailors it to where we are as a county.
Patty?
Yeah, I don't mind some language like that. I'm just, again, the definition of safe climate, that could be so broad. I'd rather tie it to our flourishing environment, our, part of the county philosophies.
Yeah.
But I think Kelly's changes are perfect, great. I'd like to see that language. And we do have a regular meeting next Wednesday.
I had some things I wanted to bring up. This is great. I'm so excited to see this, and it's so timely, perfect timing for all of this. On the installation of solar energy systems in new county buildings, when I read that, I wanted to say, and energy conservation systems in county buildings and retrofits. And maybe you already have it in here, but I wasn't sure I was finding it. So I thought if we're going to talk about solar energy isn't the only thing we can do, and nor should it be. In some cases, it may not be appropriate, but we can certainly keep pressing for energy conservation measures.
And renewables.
And renewables, right, the same, yeah, and renewables and conservation, yes. The major thing that I wanted to, there are a couple, I've got a bunch of points, I'll bring them up quickly. The major thing is, I'd like to have a clause in here that that states that we encourage and will facilitate whenever possible other agencies, governments involved with us, individuals, businesses, to adopt and practice these resolutions with us. Because this isn't just Pitkin County solving a problem for the citizenry, this is us taking a lead, but what we really need to do is engage the entire public. And the biggest thing that I'm noticing is there's still a lot of people who don't have to pay attention to this, and so they don't. They're not really paying attention, but it's gonna take all of us to make this happen. So I'd like to have something in here that says we strongly encourage the public to join us in this, and it's a group effort, and it's not going to be us fixing it for anyone or mandating it.
Is that not what kind of is said in the request for regional collaboration to counter climate change? Did you just want to broaden that request for regional?
Well, to include individuals as well, and maybe business people who wouldn't be considering themselves part of a regional government. I was reading.
Oh, you're reading regional collaboration
elected,
to only mean government?
I'm concerned that we could be more specific, and we could actually, in our resolution, call out the public and say, okay, everybody, let's get on board. This is, in my opinion, this is the equivalent of as they say, the mobilization of the World War II effort, or the Manhattan Project, or the Moonshot. It's like, this is going to take all of us working in concert together. Kelly.
I just was gonna suggest maybe where you could create a new whereas statement and split out where we say, whereas we endeavor to be a leader in responsible stewardship and encourage.
Yeah, either that or we could just put it in after request for regional collaboration for climate change, put in there on both the private and public levels or
Sure.
something. So
Right.
it's-
No doubt there's an easier way to say it
Yeah,
than I
so
just.
because sometimes the lengthier you make it, the least
Right.
amount of people read it.
Right.
So
Short
we
and
wanna,
sweet.
We wanna make, yeah, short and sweet.
I'm with you on that.
But I think, yeah, pointing out that it's not just the responsibility of the government, it's the responsibility of all. That's a good statement right there.
Now, if I could, I want to agree with George. The sooner we talk about supporting HR 733, is that the right number? The better.
763.
63. The process in this, at one point I thought, boy, if this is going to be tough, if it's going to be tough to really accomplish what we're setting out to do we need to consider a public visioning group from the community? Maybe the way, we're tackling a huge issue for us locally is the airport. Well, this issue is as big or as provocative and life-changing as that, or maybe more so. And perhaps we need to contemplate that going forward.
Be a good point for the Aspen Institute.
Maybe for the Institute, or, so engagement of the public seems to be the undercurrent. Specific things that I would like to have us all consider is, we talk about carbon fees. That's what 763 is about, a fee and then a dividend that goes back to the entire public. It's an interesting idea. Could we be doing something like that locally? Our biggest challenges are transportation. There are buildings in terms of energy use. In transportation, is there any way we can tie a carbon fee to aspects of our transportation, whether it's emplanements or whether it's fuel sales or something else, where the money then gets put back into restoring carbon balance, whether it's through planting trees locally, or there are many organizations do this, but it's something we could consider. Just throwing it out there because I'd like us to talk about it. Another one, as Kelly mentioned, move to electrification of our fleets, and sooner. There's always a reason not to do things, but there are a lot of really good reasons to look at doing it. And I believe incentivizing electrification of businesses and homeowners, individuals again, same thing. Incentivize carbon and water smart landscaping and ag. I think we're doing that. I want to make sure it's articulated when we talk about, carbon sequestration in agriculture is really important. Landscaping can play a huge role just locally. How do we incentivize the public once again to do this? How do we make core that much more essential to the public here? ambitious goals for rooftop solar and conservation in the community and businesses. Once again, it's, as I say, I stand out on my driveway and I look out across the valley. I can see about 40 houses from my road, and maybe 3 of those houses have solar, yet we're in an ideal location for rooftop solar or garden solar, on a stand. Why isn't this happening? I'm still wondering why this hasn't happened yet. It's become so much more affordable. And so with that, maybe it's creating a public campaign. And the thought that occurred to me was, what if we ask everyone, we ask all of our departments at budget season, what is your climate action plan? What if everyone asked everyone what their climate action plan was? We could go to a business or to another organization. Hey, what's your climate action plan? What if businesses said, hey, we're part of your climate action plan, like RAFTA. RAFTA is part of our climate action plan. Let's use it. I just think we need to elevate the profile of these efforts. Somebody mentioned, a quote would be, or a slogan would be, it's time to put the action in our climate action plan. And that's for everyone, because I think the county is stepping up and doing a good job so far. We've talked about low carbon plastics, meaning eliminating single-use plastics, incentivizing low-cost alternatives in our local markets. I made a visit to a couple local stores recently and saw no alternatives to single-use plastics for picnic items, cups and things like that. And it's like, come on, this is in this town. We should.
There's such a great irony in putting disposable food in indisposable packaging.
And the food is long gone while the containers will be there forever. So, and the final thing, and perhaps even as important, climate change is upon us. We're not going to reverse it or change it or fix it in the next generation, but we certainly have to start. But what we certainly need to do is make sure that our kids and their kids are resilient and prepared for what's coming with climate. And you can find all manner of dissertations by scholars on how bad it could be or what could possibly happen. Yet the bottom line is, how do we prepare our kids for this? So resilience has come up before in my conversations. It's coping with climate change, climate anxiety, as it's called. Solastalgia is a word, a clinical term now, which is a climate anxiety. If you've never heard of it before, you'll be hearing about it more, I can promise you. So I think any climate action or emergency we have might want to mention that we want in building resilience. I think you have it in here, but we can talk about it's a public health issue as well as physical, tangible, renewable energy and conservation. So those are my suggestions. Sorry for the laundry list. And I was going to look at the kids thing too and see if there was something in here that we missed. George?
I was just going to add on to or tap into some of your thoughts, Greg, and jump a little ahead in terms of board reports. But when you mentioned CORE, CORE is in a process of coming up with the first really strategic plan that we've ever had. And the priorities are carbon reduction, project design optimization, carbon-free culture, and organizational resilience. And and each of these have some goals and approaches, but under carbon-free culture, of course, CORE has been involved with all the local municipalities in terms of helping them develop climate action plans. And one of the goals here is that CORE will convene and lead the Upper Roaring Fork Valley Climate Action Plan Collaborative for the years 20 to 23 and expand to the entire Roaring Fork Valley by 2025. So we have an organization whose part of their strategic plan is to do exactly what you've been asking as part of this. So
great, excellent.
Well, I think when we have Ruthie come in, she can explain the abilities or difficulties in local jurisdictions doing carbon fees and dividends, because we know we've had a lot of opposition at the federal level, even state level, so Ruthie would be a great person to bounce that question off of. And I think one of the hardest things, if you went out to somebody with a small business or somebody building a new house and said, what is your climate action plan? A lot of people would have no idea what a climate action plan even means. So I think we need to start at that fundamental level of what does a climate action mean? And I think the best thing Pickens County did with our climate action plan was we made it with achievable first step goals, because a lot of people have plans and they do nothing with them. At least with ours, we made it so Fleet can do this, and Fleet's been buying electric vehicles. We picked departments who could actually put their money where their mouth is and put their feet on the ground and get things done. And I think that's what happens with climate action plans. They're so verbose and they're so worldly that you can't really accomplish them. So what we did was we started out with things we could actually accomplish that gives people then the incentive to accomplish more as they move forward.
Well
And I
said.
think those are benefits.
Thank you. That's good.
I had to add, one of my pet peeves that I always bring up to our colleagues across the street who sit on the core board is, in terms of addressing the city's climate action plan, is when you walk around the commercial sector of town, and in the wintertime, you notice how many doors remain open,
I hate that.
and so heat is just going out. And then in the summertime, doors remain open, you've got air conditioning going out. So when you talk about energy loss and trying to reduce our carbon footprint, there's some really simple, immediate actions that the city could take in terms of requiring doors remain closed and or not utilizing air conditioning or heating if they're going to have those doors open.
So George, I have to tell you, do you know how many times I've gotten in trouble walking through town and closing doors?
But it's
I've had shop owners
that's one of
come
those.
out and say, our building is too hot, we have a poor heating system. I'm like, fix the heating system, don't leave your door open.
That's one of those very simple, easy solutions to start to address energy use and consumption. But that's.
You wanna go with me next time? I
That's where a
close
fee
doors?
and dividend would actually be a useful economic tool.
Right,
you know.
exactly.
So if you're going to do that, you're going to pay for it.
Right.
And
You should send the kids around to close the door.
I do, and I get mad at you. It's a way to invite customers into your business.
Steve,
One of my pet peeves is the
you
so
bring that
many people out there who are climate deniers, and we have them here in our own valley and spread across the country and in the halls of the United States Congress. And there's no amount of talking will normally convince somebody there that they sort of have their head stuck in the sand, and yet it can make it really frustrating. So in this case, in Colorado, we have Boulder County, the city of Fort Collins, and the town of BOCC, I think, are the only ones who have taken this action. All of those are members of CC4CA. You don't see Weld County or Mesa County or, a lot of these conservative parts of the state signing on to this thing, and they will probably they'll expect us to join it, because then that's one more thing they can kind of poo-poo what Pickens County is doing. And yet, this is the most important thing we can do as county commissioners, bar none, as far as I'm concerned. So, looking at the logistics of it, I would like to have a proclamation that we get the kids to come back in and read a proclamation at one of our meetings and have the kids there. And maybe that would come after we pass the resolution, or maybe it could be.
I wonder, Steve, if given that the resolution was specifically requested, if it's the board's desire, it may make sense to invite that group of kids back in for adoption of the resolution, and you could recognize them at that time. That would be
That'd be good.
I think
Great
something to recognize them and get them all back
I
here.
think
and
we
get
know
their
how to get in
picture.
touch with them, right, Chairman Postman?
I know a couple of them.
Get them out of school
Family
again.
picture for Christmas.
But I have to tell you, the press called me to make sure that the spelling of your daughter's names, they called me because they couldn't get a hold of you.
I
so
had a call asking if they were related to me. I loved that.
I vouched for you kids.
I said, I don't know who you're talking about.
So, Greg, I
Thank
think
you.
it's important to note that a lot of what we've been talking about today, county departments are already engaged in. As we said, we tried to create a climate action plan and such that was actionable. Some of the goals are definitely stretch goals for us where we are right now, and a lot of what has been talked about today is new. A lot of the aspirations around outreach and collaboration and future planning and such. And so if we are going to make those real, and that's going to end up being realized through, through our budget process, through how we align resources in the organization, because we don't have a lot of additional capacity out there right now to do new things. And so it's going to be something that, as the board makes these policy statements, our intent would be to take those seriously. And, while this doesn't have any immediate budget implications or anything, I think we should be looking forward to the fact that in order to meet these, to translate these aspirations into actions, the other thing that I've heard, it's going to take some additional resources and thinking about how we're aligned organizationally to do this. So just know that this is a big policy statement, and certainly the broad range of conversation today, I think, demonstrates that.
Thanks, John. I appreciate that, and you're right. You're right. I think we need to recognize that. Kelly.
Absolutely. I also think it's helpful to point out, though, that in some ways the kids are just sort of pushing us along on our own priorities anyhow, because we met in the winter and had decided as a board that climate action was one of our top 3 priorities. And so, I look at this as just a little bit of a follow-up conversation to that, and, kind of helping us re-kickstart strategy conversations about how we get to that priority.
I think so. Let's take it that way, certainly, and help us with our momentum. I wanted to mention a couple things the kids said the other day which stuck with me. One was one of the quotes, social scientists have found that when one person makes a sustainability-oriented decision, other people do too. So what they're really suggesting is that if we take the lead, it will actually help affect change. I think it's important to keep that in mind, that when it's a hard conversation like this, leaders are called on to lead, and that's what we're doing. It's been demanded of us. The laundry list that we had from the kids the other day included suggestions for reducing or eliminating single-use plastics, transitioning to local vehicles to electric more rapidly, adopting solar on homes, neighborhoods, and businesses, reduce consumption of animal protein. I've been experimenting with the what do you call Beyond
Don't
Beef.
go on with those burgers and
Those are
hot dogs
great.
again.
I'm giving a pitch
You
for
gotta
them.
give just advertising for,
Yeah,
know,
we'll advertise the
Oscar
other one
Mayer.
too. As soon as Oscar Mayer comes out with a plant-based burger, I'll eat theirs too. Fewer air trips or carbon offsets, working with CORE. Those were like the specifics that the kids brought up in the first round. There were some others too, which I'll find. So the question is, one idea I had was, if we were going to spend any money marketing, sometimes I worry that CORE doesn't have enough public profile. People don't know what they're doing, or they seem like a subset. They should be front and center and so well publicized that everyone in town is taking advantage of the great cost-saving things that they do. Is there a need for a bigger marketing budget? Spending some money on marketing and outreach might be money well spent if we're trying to make sure people understand what's happening and what's available to them to help us solve this problem. So I don't know if I had marketing in there. I think I did with outreach, but that was the
CORE
other one.
runs regular ads in the paper. with
No,
all
they
the-
run some ads. I'm
No,
hoping
do
that
they-
they're.
Well, George, don't they have don't we allot that during the budget?
We do, and that will be coming up this fall for discussion.
maybe
Maybe that'll be a
strengthen
review.
There's,
on
there's
just
other
how
challenges.
effective has it
There's other
been.
challenges also.
Sure, of course there will be. Okay, that's probably it for me for now. Now, the question is, have we satisfied the demands placed upon us by the kids who came in the other day?
I don't know, if we pass this, will your children let you have dinner at the dinner table now?
They may suffocate me in my sleep.
With with a reusable plastic bag,
Yeah, sure.
not a single use. I think it would be great if the kids could be here, but I don't, they're getting kind of their schedules with the holidays coming up, and it'd be fun if Halloween they could be wearing their little ears that
We
they
can
bought.
certainly invite them.
Yeah, or see, but I'd like to get it done sooner than later. if
Wednesday
possible.
afternoons, they get out at 2:30, the schools do. So if it's something scheduled after 2:30 on a Wednesday, they could probably be
I don't know
here.
if they'd want to. Well, they could come sit through the whole solar thing on
You might want to.
Wednesday.
They're asking us to treat this like an emergency, and I
So-
think we should try to respond in kind and schedule this.
I'd like to do it on the next
as
regular
possible.
meeting, and then we could plan something special at a work session or sometime when we could actually, something when the kids could be here. But if we wait till we can get the kids back in here, it could be a while.
Steve?
Just one more thought. Should we make this an emergency resolution effective immediately? An
Our
emergency
ordinance is- resolution's
resolution
effective.
endorsing the declaration of an climate emergency.
I don't think there's a 2-reading 30-day requirement on this, is there?
No, it's, the board has broad discretion on how you define emergency. This would be a one read. It's not.
Effective immediately.
Yeah, and so it's not, it's more of a policy statement to direct other activities of government. So there's not a specific activity that's waiting on this. If from the perspective of messaging, the board feels it's important to adopt this under that auspice. You have the flexibility to make that call. It won't necessarily affect any activities.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, great job.
Thank you for coming out. Thanks for being so responsive. It's exciting, and look forward to seeing it come back to us very soon.
Thank you for having me.
We'll get together
Thank
with
you.
Charlotte and John and figure that out.
And I'm just hoping you can loop in, I don't know, maybe Karen Kinnaman may have some ideas as if there's a public health facet that needs input from her suggestions. I'd love to see that part of the conversation, at least, that comes back to us. Thank you. Okay, wow. Well, that went much faster than I thought it would.
It took longer than I
It actually took longer.
24 minutes.
No, it's because the other one was ahead of
The
schedule.
other one we were ahead of schedule, that like half an hour. Okay, prep for a joint meeting with the town of Basalt.
Yeah, so this one will probably be fairly quick, but before we have our joint meetings, we typically set aside time to make sure we've got topics covered. You may recall that the original genesis of this was to talk about the river park and the landscaping. This was the time that we could have our consultants available and schedule both boards. So we'd anticipate still having that on the agenda. I'd also heard from my counterpart that there's some interest in getting an update on Mountain Family Health Centers, and I think just broadly kind of what our plans are, what we're looking at with the 123 Emma Road, the river park. Now I forget
The
what it's
building
called.
itself, you
Yes.
mean, as a whole?
Yeah, just how we're looking at utilizing that space in the future. Is it expansion of Mountain Family Health, or is it just what it is today? Those sorts of things, and we could certainly give the perspective that staff has on that. But that's all that I had at this point. I don't know if there are other updates or informational pieces. That will take a good chunk of the time. I'd expect the river park. I don't think we've had a discussion that's been under an hour on that, and I'd expect that this would be
And
similar.
is that planning to include both the landscaping around the river feature as well as the Rissid water park that's in the river?
Yeah, I think the primary focus of this is the amenities around the in-stream. I'm sure there will be questions about the
How
in-stream
about how it's been
improvements
working with
too.
high water
Yeah.
and no water?
Right, it'd be nice to have a progress report from the contractor on, information they've received, public comment they've received. I think we're soliciting public comment, or at least hearing it. It'd be nice to catch up on that, because that's the one thing people mention to me about basalt, and that it's about the wave feature itself.
Well, they were working on that. They're gonna wait till the water came down and then when they could actually get in and.
Right. So a report on
So
how,
they'll have a
plan of
plan,
action
yeah.
would be great. You mentioned Mountain Family Health. Is there a need for a Basalt Vista update? I'm not sure.
We can certainly, if nothing else, I think it's a partnership just worthy of recognition and celebration, even
Yeah.
if there's not a.
It's
Excellent.
moving along.
Great idea. Anything else? Other basalt issues?
I'd be curious about their ongoing conversation about the early childhood center that they're
Yeah, I
contemplating in
I had that
Willits.
down.
Oh, great.
I don't know
Right.
if that's premature before our work session on child care, but that is a topic I have interest in.
Yeah, I don't know how much the town council was talking about it rather than the Child Care Coalition, the possibility of creating a child care taxing district, Mid-Valley, but then new enabling legislation. They may not have anything to put in on that, but it might be something to ask them about if they have any info.
Steve?
Since Basalt did just pass an climate change emergency resolution, we could have a discussion about what are their specific things that they're working on
That'd be huge.
for their climate action plan, and we could share things we're doing.
That's a great idea. Thanks. Since we're moving in that direction,
Yeah, but do you remember we have 2 hours, 2
synchronicity.
hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
no problem.
Some of these can be quick, I think. Or will, out of necessity, be quick, yeah.
Okay.
It's a magic word, right, Kelly? 2. We're talking about grandkids and kids. 2 minutes.
Oh, my
Okay,
daughter
so
eating
is
dog
that it
food.
for
Okay.
our
I'm like,
prep
how
for
many
our
of those did
town
you eat?
meeting?
Two.
Is there anybody else we should have there? Any other questions, people to invite? I guess
I
not.
think we're probably full.
Okay. Up next, we have review of future agenda calendars. Boy, that only took us 4 minutes.
Well, if we can get you out of here early, we will. Just a quick note, we're getting into the time of the year where we're coming up on budget, so our future agendas are going to fill up quickly. We're going to have some long days in there. As you know, we try and break up the review of the budget into roughly about 6 meetings, kind of a introductory meeting, along with meetings on the 3 core focus areas, and then a summary meeting and final decision meeting. And then in between there, we're usually trying to fit in presentations through outsider-related funds, whether it be ambulance district, DA, those sorts of things. So those meetings usually take quite a bit of time, so just want to prepare you that we've been blessed with some shorter meetings. That's about to come to an end, and our agenda time, particularly to add in new items and such, is going to get pretty tight. So just a general heads up there. Also, and I just want to double check the date on this, if you'll give me just a second. I was visiting with the hospital, and we realized that our boards had not gotten together in some time, and that we've got a lot of partnerships. And recently, a few board members and I know a few council members have reached out about things like there's been a lot of press on the Peak Health Alliance, and there have been questions about the BHA. So we thought it'd be good to get a joint meeting together. We found time on October 8th, and that would be here. So we would proposed putting together a joint meeting, mostly to give you guys an update on some of our joint efforts. We just celebrated the cutting the ribbon on the ambulance facility. There's going to be a lot of updates where the organizations are going to be involved together with Valley Health Alliance initiatives. And we thought going into budget, because that's kind of a contemporary topic, it'd be good to get you guys together sooner. So Charlotte and Amy got together and found that time. So we'll be adding that in. You won't see it if you're looking for it in future agendas.
No,
it's too new.
it's on here.
Oh, it is on there?
It's on here,
God,
but
they're
there's
so
no
good.
prep time on here. Do we need a prep time for it, or are we
We
just
can
gonna
put
go
some
on
prep
blind?
time
It's prep
together.
time. Next Tuesday.
Oh, there is? Oh, that's the page I don't have. I can't find. I've skipped next week because I can't find the page.
Other future agenda items, October 9th, CORE has requested a proclamation. George, I assume you're aware of this.
I have a copy. I was going to send it up over to Pat, just if she wants to tweak it a little bit, because normally staff does proclamations.
For their 25th
Yeah,
anniversary?
so
25th? Is that right?
both the CORE is requesting on both the county and the city to pass a proclamation, I believe, declaring October 16th as CORE Day in celebration of their
That's
anniversary.
the anniversary party date, isn't it?
Is what?
Their party date, the party day for the core anniversary is the 15th?
This,
When's their party?
maybe the 16th.
They requested October 16th, so I'm guessing the party would probably be
Be
on
that day?
Let's see.
16th?
That's what I've got, yeah.
No.
Okay.
That's all I have on future agendas.
Yeah, I have a couple things. Speaking of proclamations, we talked about it, well, I'd been thinking about it last season through the spring, and then again through the summer. And I think we have a draft from another community that celebrated their snowplow guys after heavy winters and heavy seasons. And I would like to do one. I've been working with Pat and with Icona Romney. With the
So we're actually talking about doing I think a more general set too of proclamations, because so many departments have been impacted either by snow or heavy workloads and such. And I think we're a little worried about recognizing one department when many departments may have been affected by various
Well, I would just like
workloads,
to
and we
do
don't-
something to celebrate the efforts, and
Yeah.
my thought was with the snow guys and road and bridge guys who are out there, not only in the winter, but all summer trying to clear our roads. It wasn't like they had ended in when the snow melted, the
that
snow's
is
still
totally
up there. So whatever we wanna do, I would like to do something before we start the season to get them rolling. And let them know that we support them in their efforts from last season, and I don't care how you wanna do it. I just wanted to see if the board would support doing it.
Can we do that when they come in for budget time?
Well, if we're gonna do the whole, I don't know,
Usually come
nobody's
in by
talked to me about
departments.
this after I talked about it, so this is news to me. So, I don't know.
We're happy to do, yeah.
Yeah. I do think, I mean,
Well, however you wanna,
yeah, we just should be sensitive to fairness, I think, and recognition for all who deserve it. You know, a lot of departments have gone through huge conversion and change.
I'm not talking about that, I'm just talking related to what happened. I'm not talking about all the other new computer programs and all that stuff. I'm talking about the efforts that people went through because of the brutal winter we had and the avalanches and all of that, and just to recognize, and that's why I went to Road and Bridge, because those guys are out there day and night on the ground, literally, and they were out there with trying to clear roads, so I'm trying to not make it.
Avalanches of work are as meaningful to some people as avalanches of snow.
Yeah, I know, but my point was to celebrate, whatever, forget it.
Well, I think we can, yeah.
Just forget it.
Right, so I think
We want
what
to
I'm
celebrate
saying is,
everybody. That's
Yeah,
the
no, let's just
problem.
forget it.
well,
That's the good problem.
Just forget it.
No, don't forget it.
Patty, I'm sorry,
That's okay.
I just think that what we're trying to do is, broadly recognize and come up with a plan for that. So
Right, we've discussed this before where I think you've discussed doing it in a way that includes everyone in the sequence that it should happen. I think that's how we discussed it, right? Yeah. Okay, anything else for future agendas?
George and I both.
You gotta look up if you wanna know.
Oh.
Someone else has-
Speak up.
has questions.
I'm sometimes out in the fog, as you know. Go ahead.
Next week, there's scheduled to be a site visit to Sunfire Ranch. I've done that already, although if ComDev has a little more detail in terms of what Sunfire, what that conservation
The management plan?
management plan is going to be looking like, then it might be valuable, because otherwise I don't need to go.
Okay. So you basically want input from ComDev, whether there's.
Well, if ComDev is, I don't know if I know they're still working on a plan, but if they have sort of a plan in mind, a draft that will show exactly what may be looked at in terms of the use of that property with all the different applications, then that would add some value to that trip, at least for me. If it's not, if ComDev doesn't have that available, then I won't need to go.
Steve?
On that same topic, the Rocky Mountain Health Information Listening Session is that same morning here in the Roaring Fork Room. And I don't know that I would learn that much more going on another site visit at Sunfire Ranch. I think this was more designed for those who hadn't been at all in the open space and trails, and then Kelly to go see it. So I was debating whether it'd be my time might be more valuable coming up here and just participating in that listening session on the health plans.
Okay.
Just let me know, because I'm planning to spend the night in Glenwood if there's going to be a site visit. If not, I'm not spending the night in Glenwood and
So-
driving up, so.
So far,
Make up your
Kelly and Patty are going.
I'm still thinking I'm gonna go.
I've seen the property a bunch, but I haven't toured it with anybody who can specifically go through things, and you always learn something more when you go, so just let me know where I'm sleeping on Monday night.
I'd like to see the specifics. I'd like to see where we are now with it. I was there quite a while ago. So that's two of us, maybe three.
Well, I was planning, I just want to make sure that you guys
If it's happening,
don't
it's
change your
happening,
minds between now and Tuesday morning.
Okay, I think we're on.
With regard to the 25th, I was originally not planning to attend, but I've seen the final agenda for the roundtable conference, and that first afternoon is sort of like a junket of tours and awards dinners and things that are less important to me than to being here. Though I would like to ask if the board would consider starting that meeting early rather than at noon, given that we anticipate it to be a long day, if possible. I do have to drive to Winter Park that day.
Yeah, that's
I mean, that's sort of I know, John, I mean, that's sort of
I don't think you've ever done that.
scheduled public meeting, and we've had requests in the past to do something like that, and we've always said, no, the public meeting starts at noon, and that's the way it goes, because otherwise there has been requests over the years that I've been here to go an hour earlier, but that's, the public knows it's Wednesday, second and fourth Wednesday at noon is our scheduled public meeting.
That's definitely been the practice. The board has the ability, to change that and post it in advance. But the board's practice has been to stick to that noon.
Because
So I think it's a request.
there's always reasons to change
Right.
it, so
The one thing we might be able to do, though, I don't know how long the item before, the Lake Chamonix major PUD amendment is going to take on the agenda. Maybe if Leslie thinks that might take us some time, just let the people know we're going to schedule it later in the day and put that afterwards, because Kelly can leave right after the solar.
Yeah.
Because I think the morning part of the earlier part of the agenda should go pretty quickly looking at it. Most of them are second reads.
Yeah, no, I think it's set up,
But
like
maybe
you
if
said,
Leslie
to go.
thinks her item might take a long time, we might want to pop that at the end of the day then.
Okay.
And that'd move the other one up. But Kelly, thank you for bringing that up. I did have a question. How are we running that meeting? Do we have a list? Are we gonna have a list for people? We're gonna post the public hearing thing on the wall like we've had before? and
Yeah, I think
gonna have
a
your little
couple
timer?
things. We'll need to probably open up the Roaring Fork room and use that as a overflow with video and audio. Just given the interest that was at the.
Last time they just opened the doors and they were all sitting out in the hallway. It was kind of chaotic for a
It was,
B&B.
yeah, it was a pretty big crew. How we've handled those bigger public meetings is to have a sign-up sheet. If the board wishes to have a time limit on public comment, certainly we've done that in the past. That
Thinking
could
about
be
the
a
Crystal
discussion.
Trail, when we did that, it worked really well. John's got a great timer on his app.
Yep.
And that's really, really helpful for you, Greg, trying to run a meeting with that much public comment. But, and the
Okay, we'll
sign-up
have that
sheets.
available, sure.
Yeah.
Sign-up sheets, the timer.
So we just need to have that set up, and we also had the poster board that said this is how the public hearing things up, somewhere where people can see it when they come in, so they kind of know the basics of the rules of running a meeting. Not that may make it any easier for you, Greg, but it might help.
No, that would certainly help. And then just, yeah, so Kelly, I don't know, getting you out of here,
No, I think Patty's suggestion is helpful if Leslie and the
bump those
applicant
things.
are amenable.
So if we can ask Leslie about that.
Steve?
I also remember lots of times where Rachel was chomping at the bit to get out of here, to get to CCI the next morning and to hit the road early. We never started a meeting early for that, but there were times she had her bags packed and was
Ready to bolt.
out,
Yeah.
bolting
I
out
think
the
we can
door
move
at
that
the
item
end of
to
the
end and
meeting.
you can go.
No,
But
I
we don't
understand.
wanna
I
use,
appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Sometimes our travel plans are inconvenienced because we have a long meeting, and we just all learn to live with that to some extent. And those of us who travel more to meetings have to deal with it more often.
Okay, where we are now, is that it for
I don't-
future?
yeah, I think I'm
We
missing
could
a
either
thing
take a
here.
break now, or we could go to our open discussion and membership reports and be adjourned early, but we have to get back and do a
I think we should just keep rolling.
continuation of our meeting. So you want to just keep going and then
That's
we'll
okay
have
with
a
me if it's
bigger,
okay with
larger
everybody
break.
else.
Yeah,
Okay.
keep moving.
Open discussion.
Gosh, Karen was going to be here, but she probably did not anticipate us running this.
I have one we
early.
can start with.
Yeah, we're half an hour ahead.
Okay, I had the pleasure of attending the East of Aspen caucus meeting last week. It started out really, really calm. People were they were supposed to do positives and negatives, not just all negatives. Well, it was pretty much all negatives about the North Star Open Space. We were letting them know that we're gonna open up the planning process for the master plan update a little early. We're gonna take their comments. I took really clear notes. They already sent me on their minutes from the meeting. There was some issues, but the things that came out that I need to ask the board for permission to move forward on, the CDOT representative there, Andrew Knapp, was there. He was great. George, do you work with him at all? He was terrific. He was very honest and upfront, very calm. They would like more no parking signs. They would like to look at speed limit signs for school zone by Wildwood, because the buses are having some trouble sometimes getting in and out, especially when the pass is open, because people tend to move at a pretty rapid pace through there. And they're looking at right across from the takeout. There's on the opposite side of the street, there's a little shoulder area that's not certain how much of it is. They don't really know where that section of Highway 82 easements are. It's very gray area, as we know from the one we just had to do to amend our open space boundary lines. But we have to submit a formal letter from Pickens County asking CDOT to look at adding more parking signs, looking at the school zone signs, and then to talk about they want either Jersey barriers, which then of course you have to have like bumpers at either end so people don't crash into them and all that. And the caucus people did say, CDOT was clear, we don't have any money. They said, well, let's open the discussion and maybe they would look at funding it. Big question mark after that. But in order for CDOT to even look at those things, they need a formal letter coming from Pickens County. So John and I have talked about maybe bringing Brian and Dave in to see about putting together a letter to send on to CDOT to get that conversation going.
To be clear, this is a request from the caucus to CDOT, but they need our letter.
Right, because the
Okay,
county
So these
was
are the
there.
caucus concerns. CDOT didn't bring up signage or anything.
No,
He
but
just listened.
he was there, and he said, if you want us to look at it, you know, we could look at that. He also was very clear about they wanted to reduce the speed limits, and it was one of those, you know, be careful what you ask for, because he said if we find that people are going 40, 45 through there consistently, that may mean that they'd raise the speed limit. So the caucus backed off on that request to lower the speed limit signs, but did ask for some more clear signage for no parking. The discussion is much larger. Joey was there talking about enforcement issues, and they will have another ranger there next year to help with enforcement between the parking issues that the rangers really can't do. It'll be through the sheriff's office. So there's some positives moving forward outside of the management plan issue, the updating of that. But the main thing is we want to get it kicked off with CDOT, because Andrew was very clear about it might take CDOT a little time. Let's get the ball rolling. So I just need to make sure it's okay with the board to draft a letter to CDOT with Brian and Dave and John Peacock.
I mean, I don't have a problem with that, but I think that the parking and the signages and the traffic impacts all will be part of the management plan. And so I don't want to segregate those out. And so if at least I would want to have open space staff, Gary involved, or Lindsay involved in that, to knowing what
It's not going to interfere.
what some of the things that they're going to be working on. So there is so there's some consistency, and everyone's on the right page.
Okay.
We don't want to say we want this, and then the open space management plan has some other concerns and impacts.
Right, Lindsay was there and heard all of
Yeah,
this too,
okay.
so, but yeah, that's a really good idea, just run it by them too before we move forward, but I know Brian's been out of town, he's coming back.
Yeah, he's
next-
out of town, so I've got a message into him to talk to CDOT about it, what form the request, if it is a letter or some other form that the request needs to come.
I also got an email this morning from the gentleman who hosted the meeting for the caucus, wanted to know if we were having a full discussion today about the permitting process at North Star. And I sent him back, it was like at 7 o'clock this morning, I sent him back a response saying, no, that's part of the 2020, that'll be discussed at that point next year when we do the update of the management plan. Because they were pretty insistent either on a very strict permitting process or no use at all.
Yeah, well, there's just an advisory.
Right, but I just want to let you know what the
That's what they're
conversation
thinking.
was. So they were glad to be part of the planning, and glad to hear that the planning process was opening up a little, and they're going to be directly involved, and staff's really going to be good about keeping them posted on when meetings are being held, when public comments being solicited on a general level. But so if we can just give John apparently a nod that he can continue to work with Brian and run it by Gary Tannenbaum, and then we can move that letter forward. And then it's up to CDOT can say, no, we're not doing anything at all, or they could say, we'll put 3 signs in or something, but it was pretty clear request, and CDOT, again, was great. And Joey was there too from the sheriff's office, so it was a good
I'm
meeting.
glad Joey was there. I wanted to say that I understood that during that meeting, one individual actually kind of went after you, and I'd say
Personally,
a personal attack on you verbally in that meeting. An individual who lives up there, and it was so out of line that I'm still
It's pretty
quite upset.
uncomfortable.
I'm contemplating how we should be responding, because it really was out of line.
I think he's a gentleman that we just don't respond to. I just sat there and took
Well-
a lot of deep breaths when he accused me of killing his dog. It was a little brutal, but
Right. So
Yeah.
it was an uncalled for ad hominem and non sequitur attack on Patty Clapper, which is we all know that this has happened, and we're I'm
thank you for
upset
bringing it
about
up.
it.
It was one of those
Yeah.
comfortable moments, right, George?
yeah. And I
Visit
just
some of
think
my
that-
caucus meetings.
Well, yeah. When the other thing I wanted to mention is I know regarding CDOT, if open discussion here, I know there's some new signs on the edge of town and the
Oh,
entrance
they're
of town.
horrible.
that
Coming
say-
at both ends
It's
of
a big
town.
Colorado flag logo, but beneath it is a sign for a pot company, cannabis.
Winnie.
company that I've never heard of.
HWINNEY or
Where
something.
they've put, it's a billboard for a marijuana company, but it's a CDOT
It's an
sign.
adopted highway sign.
Is it like an adopted
But
highway,
they're
whatever the
now-
new
they're-
thing
have you
is? But
seen
it's
them?
much
They're
bigger,
this- they're
uglier, and more offensive.
huge.
Are they the ones, I haven't read them, but I just saw new signs went by the roundabout. Is
Yeah,
that where
and
they are?
both
there's
sides of
one,
town.
and then there's another one coming into town. There's
From the pass.
two coming down the pass. The adopted highway signs used to be these little
They're
things.
not
These
adopted.
are
Doesn't- you don't even know
advertisements
really
for a
what they are.
marijuana shop.
It's an advertise, and so I'm going to
That I've
encourage
never heard of.
the heirs of Bugsy Barnard to come forth.
You won't be able to get them
take
out
care
of
of this
see
for
them
us.
every time now.
I don't think I've noticed.
Yeah, you'll see them if you're coming to town.
They
You'll
are-
wonder why they're there.
They're probably
and
half the size of
how,
this screen.
How could they have let this happen? It's kind of an offensive sign to me, regardless of who it's advertising. It just
And it's
a s-
cannabis something, Colorado cannabis or something
it's
underneath
just
it.
a unnecessary signage that shouldn't
At
be
the
there.
both entrances to the city of Aspen.
So I
And
wanna
there's a sign, and then
protest
there's a
the
sign,
CDOT.
there's a small section that they must adopt. I've never noticed them to do a sign at the beginning of their adopted highway and the end, but those guys are smart. They adopted the highway at the beginning of town on either end.
Right, yeah, that's to me, it's just CDOT selling advertising is really all it is, and I don't like it. So, if the signs vanish, it'll happen when I'm out of town.
Is the board wanting us, I guess, based on that, Greg?
Can you just let Sarah know, see how the city feels when one of your meetings
do
with
you want us
Sarah?
to pursue with CDOT? just
Why
our
don't
con-
we make an inquiry, because
board
really,
concern
it was a bit of
about
a
it?
shock that they don't even ask
They're
us.
huge.
Yeah,
And they used to be these cute little things with little columbine on the top.
Well, maybe we can put 5G things on them to make them
I'm into 5G
multi-purpose.
towers, yeah, thanks.
You could actually put solar panels on them and light up the whole town.
Okay, enough of that. Is anything else on here for open discussion? Anything you want to get off your
So-
chest, Kelly?
I do just want to check in because there's some discussions circulating around the state about how to deal with short-term rental concerns.
The city just
Um,
hired a tech.
And the city has more opportunities to regulate than counties do, which was part of our ask for business licensing authorizations.
Uh-oh,
and I
she's
just
coming
wanna-
after you, Kelly.
I'm on. Okay. I just want to check in and make sure with the board that I can go ahead and have those conversations about what other counties are thinking about different strategies, and this would inform potential legislation that we would then take a position on.
Northwest
later.
Cog website should have a lot of information on what other jurisdictions are doing
Okay.
under short-term rentals. If not, let me know. They're supposed to have posted it, because that's come up there a lot, and there's a lot going on outside of this side of the mountain. So
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
be a good reference for you.
Steve, did you ever hand up?
I'm good.
Did you turn it off already?
I turn it off when I think I'm gonna cough or something.
And then you forget to turn it
forget.
on. You get yelled at, Mike.
Just call me Mike. Okay, if that's it, we're gonna
Oh,
move on.
he had one from Karen?
Yeah, and I have
She's
not
in
heard
a
back
meeting?
from her. I wonder if you go on to board reports, and if she comes
Right.
in, you might pick her up at the end before you
That's where I was gonna
back
head.
into your
Board
special meeting.
reports and,
I'm going to roll with COG. Northwest COG, we had a great meeting last month. Still working really hard on broadband, working with state, keeping Nate Wallowitz, who's our broadband guru, keeping him employed through COG to represent the 5 counties, but he also works across the state now. It was a really good meeting. Of course, we are moving forward with the amicus brief on the water issue with, is it Winter Park? Fraser, yeah. That's already been done. And then a letter with issues related to, we looked at numbers related to the 5 counties and what counties and municipalities have been putting in to fund Forest Service workers, because the Forest Service isn't funding them, especially for wildfire mitigation, et cetera. So Pickens County put in the numbers we've done for these rangers, like at North Star, on the Wildwood property and that kind of stuff. So sending out on to Congress and, again, with the request to please fund your public lands. We did have a concern about the ski fee bill that more of it's retained in local jurisdictions for uses outside of ski areas. So that means you can use it for impacts directly related to skier numbers in the local communities. But the problem was it was crossing over with the Fire Act. So they're trying to keep more funds in the federal government for fighting fires that don't come out of the Forest Service budget. It creates its own little pocket of money for fighting fires. So it got to be, well, if we're asking for this or we're asking for that, we're kind of double dipping. So we did a letter to clarify that through COG. Really close touch with Michael Bennett's office. Senator Bennett's office is very good about attending, either by phone or in person, the Northwest COG meetings. And we do occasionally have a representative from Senator Gardner's office. And of course, we have requested maybe some input from Congressman Tipton, but she came on the phone out of the Grand Junction office with Congressman Tipton, and we lost her shortly thereafter at the meeting, so I don't know what happened. But I'm trying to keep them involved with what's going on at the COG level. But the meeting was really good. The next meeting's coming up in October. And the next one is the Rural Resort Region, which is the workforce issue. And Nan and I are still pushing for them to do more locally, to get something going here in the Roaring Fork Valley. Their closest office is Glenwood Springs. They say they don't have meetings up here because nobody comes. But, it's hard right now because with everybody having help wanted signs, it's really hard to try and find people employment when anybody will employ anybody just about any street corner these days. So that's been going on. ACRA, I'm just going to keep rolling, Steve.
Sure, keep going. You're good.
ACRA, the blend session was great on Aspen Mountain. I think that's always a wonderful event. Ski Company did a presentation being very careful to avoid a couple of issues. But they usually, reveal their marketing plan for the next season. But it was mostly about, what has happened with the Icon Pass and how they're addressing issues of lift lines with people and actually putting out some numbers. I thought it was just a great event, and I really appreciate the Ski Company working with ACRA to do that. ACRA is still wanting to be involved in our energy code issues. They're also really getting active with employee housing issues. They do have an employee housing thing coming up. John, did you get that from ACRA? I'll send it on to you and you can disseminate it to the board. They have an event coming up just to kind of follow up on affordable housing in the region. So I'll make sure you guys know about that one.
You can ask them at their next meeting ask them what their climate action plans are.
I will, and they'll probably tell me that they use real silverware at breakfast when they serve it at that.
All right, I'm glad they're stepping up.
Yeah, so I think for me that's, and Kelly, there's a BOCC Child Care Coalition on Thursday. I won't be able to be there, so I know we try and tag team, but I've got doctor's appointments, so I won't be able to be there. That's been a good group, I think, to be involved in. The meeting that they just had over at the library, I thought was great. That was part of the state's plan to address child care issues, and it was well attended, and so I think some great suggestions came out. It was really a creative, write things on the wall.
One of the pieces of legislation were to put together a strategic plan addressing infant care in particular.
Yeah.
And so this was a
Out of the
public
box.
engagement session to collect that information to then feed up to the state for that planning process.
And I suggested that they do a borrow a grandma program, kind of like the buddy program. And it wasn't really laughed at. It was like, wow, maybe that's something we should think about. But I'm booked, so.
I've got some more for you. I know somebody asked me if looking for babysitters. I'll line you up. I'll give me a number. Okay. Who wants to go next?
I think George is right next.
George, you want to do RAFTA or
Core?
Core is right there.
Sure. As I mentioned earlier, CORE, we're working on our final draft for our new strategic plan. We've settled on a new mission statement, much shorter, much more concise and pertinent to where we're at in terms of climate change. The mission statement for CORE is leading the Roaring Fork Valley to a carbon-free, net zero energy future. And of course, the priorities, as I mentioned earlier, carbon reduction, project design optimization, carbon-free culture and organization resilience. So,
Covering all the bullet points.
yeah, sort of a big paradigm shift here.
Hey, also, you're gonna, you got copies of the strategic plan?
So
they
for
just shared that?
RAFTA, again, yeah, RAFTA, I've
RAFTA,
got,
sorry, moving right along.
we voted on, even though this says draft, this is the RAFTA strategic plan. And it's pretty exciting, again, in terms of looking at values and goals and opportunities. And the other thing we looked at RAFTA is we're starting our budget process as well for 2020.
I know one of the things we talked about at the RAFTA meeting was the outreach and community engagement and involvement through the website and social media. Just being responsive to public discussion, public input was part of that. It's a great looking plan and a great looking presentation of the plan. Do you want to, let's see, what else you got? I think anything else here? The Nordic Council? How's the Nordic Council? Are we ready for them yet?
You know, I haven't been going to those meetings, although I know they're supposed to be starting to do some grass cutting, getting the trails ready for the winter, and looking at possibly expanding some of their snowmaking again. That was pretty successful last year, especially for the Nordic, the kids programs.
In the Moore Fields?
Yeah, right by the club there, set up a more of a sprint course. So
Interesting. Looking at snowmaking for our Nordic trails, that's a conversation we've only begun to have in recent years and actually do in recent years, very recently.
right, this will be the third year, and it keeps on expanding. And again, it's a great opportunity for the kids at the club to be able to get on snow earlier and be able to be better prepared for all their meets, as well as extending the season later on. So earlier, getting on the snow earlier and being able to stay on the snow a little bit later.
Okay. Steve, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, on CCI, there's a couple things going on. One is the Legislative Committee will be meeting on October 17th, and I'll be attending that. That's when they will pick out of the big list of potential CCI bills which ones they're going to support. So I'll be there advocating for our proposal. They're also working, there's a group working on, it's actually the legislation about the requirements for master plumbers to do plumbing. And it was a bill that was defeated last year because there were so many amendments to it, and so now it's still in the works, looking at what requirements there should be for plumbers who are doing plumbing inspections. And I talked to Cindy about that to see if we could get someone from her department to participate in that discussion, and she thought that would be possible at the CCI meetings. Club 20 is having the fall meeting this Friday and Saturday, and I will be going on Friday for the business part and the policy, the adoption of the policy on Friday. I'm not going to stay for the public presentations on Saturday, which are more representatives like Scott Tipton will speak and different people. It's a lot of more political kind of stuff. I'm actually going to come back here to work on the barbed wire pulling project on Sky Mountain Park on Saturday. Let's see, Senior Council is meeting tomorrow, but tomorrow I and Debbie Overender from the Senior Council are going to the RAC committee. Now RAC is the Regional Advisory Committee of the Alpine Area Agency on Aging, which is part of Northwest COG. So that meeting will be where talking about senior and aging issues in Frisco tomorrow instead of being here. Let's see, CCAT. The CCAT is having their fall retreat in October on a Friday, maybe the 19th or something.
Yeah.
I think that's the date. And it's all these legislative things are just starting to get ramped up now for approaching the legislative season. So we'll have a lot bigger reports going forward.
That it?
Yeah.
Okay, Kelly?
No, I think Steve covered a lot. A lot of these groups haven't met over the summer, so there will be more to report at the end of October. Like QQ hasn't met. The roundtable, I go to that conference next week, and I'll report out of that. And then I don't know if George wants to report out on APSHA, but otherwise it's covered.
APSHA's fun as ever.
Go ahead.
Yeah, APSHA, we're working through the guidelines that the previous board had spent a considerable amount of time on, and we pulled out some of the guidelines that we want to have further discussions and bring in some outside resources, or at least for public input. So, for example, when we talk about senior needs for housing, we'd like to get some input from Chad at our senior center, maybe the Senior Advisory Council. When we look at the housing and health and communities, we'd like to get some input from Nan and from Karen as well. So there's a couple key issues that we'll be spending more time on, and actually we've got a meeting tonight, and next week we're going to have a full day retreat. And I don't think APSHA's ever had a retreat before. So we're sort of working out an agenda in terms of what are our priorities for the year and what are some of these issues that we need to tackle.
Okay.
So question on the APSHA, how does it seem to be going, George, with the having the elected officials there meeting with the
Yeah,
other
I think it's
members?
fine. I don't think you would notice any difference. I mean, there's just good conversations, good collaboration, and I think the retreat will be able to work out some more working relationships and prioritization. But otherwise, I don't. It's just you wouldn't notice a difference. Frankly, I don't think,
Good.
Kelly.
Good.
No, I agree. Yeah.
A good working board.
Yeah, I think just from sitting and observing the last year, and the tone is different. I think we've tried to just have a reset and all come forward with good faith and good intent.
Right, off to a good start.
John, I just sent you that ACRA stuff on housing.
Thank you.
RWAPA's on here, but we haven't met in quite a while. I think I reported since the last meeting. Our next meeting, it looks like it's going to be October 14th. And I have nothing for you beyond that for RWAPA. What else we have here? CC4CA, we actually have a conference call, but it's on Thursday. And that agenda is going to have updates for policy meeting. And I'm going to get on that call. Kelly won't be able to be there. So it's the carbon pollution campaign, the EV campaign, the greenhouse gas inventory campaign, and then also transition campaign, city transition campaign. And I'll have more information on that after the call, and I'll share it with Kelly first. Whoever else wants to see it.
Well, I'll be presenting at the Colorado chapter of the American Planners Association conference on what we're doing on climate change.
Excellent. And
What we're doing as Pickens County or as
Pickens
Oakland?
County.
Oh,
And Brian
Great.
Paul's going to be there with you, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, great. Okay, well represented then. What else do we have in here? Have I missed something? I haven't missed anything that I could tell you anything about, so I guess that's it for board membership reports. Now Kurt's here, I see. Is he?
Yeah, we had Karen, but apparently Kurt was going to fill in for Karen on the
I
open
want
discussion
to just add
item.
something real quick. I'm sure the board saw yesterday on the front page of the paper, the article that actually starting a series. It looks like it's going national. The World News something report, World Report News or something picked it up. There's going to be a series. There's supposed to be a video going out on the AP somehow. I don't know how they do all this stuff, but I think it's great. I think the focus, because I'll be taking all this information with me. Plus, I'm going to take the health impact study information. I'm going to hopefully meet with Karen before I go to the conference in November in Portland for the I'm Home Now, or the Home Now, the Prosperity Now I'm Home conference. So just to let you guys know.
I was thinking on the
Thank George.
topic of,
Greg sent me that, and
I know
I
that
woke up
article.
at 2 in the morning and went, oh, I got to get up now and look at this.
read the article, right, yeah. So Patty is going to become much more famous, get her autographs now.
With
while
my
you still
dog
can.
walking on the
And her
bird.
dog's
Patty,
autograph.
the Slumdog Commissioner.
I know, it's
Right.
still really, with the dog.
You know,
I think the guy liked the dog a lot more than me. He loved you.
regarding the new, the changes of state law regarding mobile home rules.
Yeah, I'm going to follow up on that. I'm going to be working with Esther out of DU. She's the professor down there, PhD down there, doctor, to find out how we can help move that forward on a state level. A lot of it's way out in the plains of Colorado where they're really having the issues.
I'm just
in
wondering,
Denver.
how will that change now that we're landlords?
It's different. Well, yeah.
Is this going to change our relationships with our
Yeah, that's a good question.
tenants?
We'll have to
Phyllis-
talk. I'll talk to
Phyllis will.
Phyllis about that.
Okay. Okay, now, moving on to, where were we? I have to go back and find us on the
Bertol's
agenda.
gonna give us a
Kurt's going to
something.
give us the agenda.
I missed the open session, so. I think I've got it on now.
There you go.
So Karen asked me to come really quick and give you guys an update. John's handing out, I think some of you know this, but we're having a emergency response exercise in October, on October 16th. We're going to do a measles outbreak exercise for public health, and I think this may be the first certainly public health emergency response exercise that I've been involved in Picken County, and it may be the last one we did maybe was H1N1. I'm not sure.
I think we had one before. I remember Liz doing one.
Yeah, that one was a statewide one, so my guess is it's been a while.
I won't be able to go to that.
We wanted to invite you to attend. We're trying to keep the numbers down, so I think we have room for one commissioner if you want to participate, and then if we have others, certainly we would invite you to be observers in the role. We have State Health Department is facilitating this for us. They did a measles response exercise at the epidemiologist conference in Pueblo earlier this year, and we asked them to come up and facilitate one for us. I'm not sure how much I should share of the scenario, but essentially it's around measles, which, as we mentioned in our public health presentation, we know that immunization rates are really low, and especially around measles, and we're seeing measles outbreaks around the country, so this is a really timely exercise for us, and be really good opportunity for our department to see all the different roles that we play, especially as a small department. For my department specifically in environmental health, how do I assist the rest of public health department in that role? So
Yeah, do you have, I would love to be there, but I'm not going to be available that day, but what about the school, what about childcare participation?
that's part of, I know the scenario revolves around schools and childcares. I believe they have been invited, but I don't know if they've RSVP'd.
Would you keep me in that loop to
Yeah.
see? I want to make sure we have somebody from the preschool level,
Sure.
that level, because that's where they're really having issues with parents documenting their immunizations and stuff for their kids. And the whole, it's in California, it's been a big issue.
Right.
So,
There'll be a debrief too, so.
yeah, if you
you
just
might-
keep me in the loop as far as who's going to be attending, because I might be able
Sure.
to encourage some people to attend that
Okay,
if you
okay.
can't get them.
It is an RSVP, so if you are able to attend, please RSVP so that we have an idea of numbers. And like I said, if you can't make the actual event, there'll be a debrief
Are you
as
immunized
well.
against measles?
Was.
You can't go. You can't go unless you've had your shots.
I have
This isn't a
video
it's
proof
not a
of
measles
Bridget
party.
being immunized as well.
So maybe put Kelly on that list, and then I'll be her second.
Okay.
If for some reason does that work? Is that?
For some reason you have the measles, you can't go.
Right.
So an interesting thing about my daughter Robin, when she was getting her childhood vaccinations, she had a real severe reaction to the MMR vaccine, and then she was exempted from doing the remainder of those. She never got another one, so I think she might be one who's potentially could get mumps, measles, or rubella because she didn't really get
She needs the herd immunity to be protected.
yeah, the herd immunity would be really important for her.
Well, and you can check it to see what it is. They can run a test,
They
because
can
they
run
do
a
for
titer.
pregnant women.
My daughter's the same. She has
Mine's retracing
severe
it.
food allergies, and several of the vaccinations are made with egg, which is one of her allergies. So we delayed her vaccinations,
We
and she
spread
had
out
a
mine.
reaction to the MMR. She ran a fever for a couple of days, and and that is a side effect. But again, that effect versus actually getting measles or mumps is tremendously less than the actual catching of the disease. So and the burden there. So yeah, we went through the same thing.
Great. Well, sign Kelly up.
Okay.
Put me in.
I'll
Can you
RSVP to
RSVP to Carlin
Carlin,
for
yeah.
me?
Put me in
Thank you.
pencil underneath. Or
Okay. Okay. And we'll let you know how it goes. The other thing I wanted to do just really quick, because I know you're pressed for time. When we did our department presentation, one of the things that you guys asked was what political topics are related to public health that might be coming up in 2019. And Karen wanted me to at least give you guys a really quick list. I won't be able to go into much detail with some of these anyway, but I'm wanting to at least put them on the radar in case you do see things that you want to come back to public health and ask us to either do a presentation or talk about. Immunizations is one. We already know that there's discussion around legislation on immunizations, potentially for the next season. Governor Polis has also made immunization rates around MMR as one of his, what does he call them, WIGs? Wildly important goals. Yeah. And that one specifically is around MMR rates. And so we're already exploring different strategies for how you increase MMR rates. And I know Eagle County may be doing a presentation to our department, but that will be something that'll come up in legislation in this next year.
Hey, Kurt, I don't know if it comes back, when we talk about this, will we actually have local data on immunization rates? I think we've seen it before, but as I understand it, our affluent community is typical of affluent communities and has lower rates. Is that a fair thing to say?
We have lower rates. I don't know that I can confirm or the piece around
Economic
the
status to it.
status of it, but I certainly know that we have lower rates than other
Well,
jurisdictions.
You could draw some
so-
inferences based on the school
Yeah.
populations.
Right. So, I don't think we have a presentation, but it's something if you would like a presentation, we can definitely come back and do. And I know there's local data, certainly around Aspen. I know their program, Robin, who's the nurse that runs that program, actually was collecting data and sharing that with us. So we can do that, I
I think
know.
it'd be a nice update because it seemed to me that we stuck out and certain other communities that had, proximities to Whole Foods and yoga studios.
And this is one of the
Not to
things
single
too that
anybody out.
I think would be interesting legislatively is to look at some of the, childcare licensing and accreditation programs because, there's a program for cleanliness and efforts that schools take to
Promote health.
reduce communicable disease and
Just promote
it's
overall health.
unrelated to vaccination rates. So you can have a school who rates very highly on this program to prevent communicable disease, yet has a low vaccination rate, which is the case in our community. So
Yep.
I would think that those programs could be strengthened to look at immunization rates as a criteria for those ratings, personally.
Great, thank you.
There's some parents who actually ask for that information before they enroll their kids.
Another subject that we're not current on any legislation, but gun safety and the public health aspects of gun safety. So again, if that's something that comes up that you would like us to talk about the public health perspective around that, we can certainly do that. You've been updated on tobacco. I don't think I need to go into much detail there. There's a lot of effort going around the state though, and I know they're
Around the
looking
country.
at collecting information on what the various local jurisdictions are doing around the state because of all the efforts similar to ours going on right now.
There's 2 new ads out from 2 new companies for vaping on TV.
Yeah, I saw a vaping one this last weekend, and it just
different-
surprised
I
me.
think there's 3
how
different
far-
companies on
Yeah.
TV now.
We saw the recent news headline that people who are addicted to nicotine through vaping have actually tried to kick vaping by using cigarettes. It's going back the other way. There are news stories about that
Well,
now.
I know that
Because they're
Jules.
concerned about,
hit you
they're
off the
concerned about the
vape.
chemicals in the vape itself. So now they're just going back to straight
Right.
tobacco.
Now, the question I had regarding that, which would be interesting to talk about, would be, is anything changing? You know, the landscape is changing so rapidly. Is our, our plans for how we're addressing tobacco and vaping, are they going to change? If we have a vote in the fall, we're already on the ballot. I assume the language has been set.
Right.
Is something have
We haven't
changed
done the
statewide with
verification of
statute?
Yeah.
Be on top of that, how
So
things might change.
I don't
statutorily?
see at this point that the ballot language would be changing. However, how the funds are deployed will probably evolve as a strategy as needs change. So more to come on that.
And we need to
Well
talk
said.
about some kind of campaign that we are allowed to do as far as that and get it going. I just thought about that. It's
Yeah.
going to be November.
Well, ballots will be mailed in 3
Yeah.
weeks, probably.
Right, and our public health
3
department,
weeks?
of course, can't
4 weeks.
have anything to do
Oh,
with
yeah,
that.
we need to
so
jump
it's
on
up to
that.
us. George?
I don't know.
Oh, just following up on the e-cigarettes. When will we have that discussion come back to us if we want to think about putting a ban on flavored
There's another
e-cigarettes?
discussion on our agendas.
Yeah, I know we have we have it scheduled, and I think there is still some language
October 1st.
issues around, particularly the licensing that was being worked out in the county attorney's office, and I think has been an issue in with several counties. So we're trying to clear that up before we bring back a recommendation.
I may have missed it, but has the city put on a ban on flavored?
No, they modified
E-cigarettes?
it, didn't they? They did something. No, they
I'm
didn't.
I'm trying to remember too.
No, I think they did an all-out ban. They weren't going to. They were going to modify it, and then I think they went for the full
Yeah.
ban.
Yeah. So all the flavor ban and licensing will be coming back, and that's something that the board can execute through to the resolution or ordinance.
Right, that's what I thought.
And I would like more information too on why Garfield County chose not to put the ballot question on. It's my understanding one of their concerns was the cost of administering the program. And I'm thinking, well, that's
reason
what's
they
paid
gave.
for with the tax that you generate. It pays for itself, right?
Yeah, and I'd have to
So
ask
if we
my
could maybe see if we
counterpart.
can get some more information on that, because remember our thing was we need to do it regionally, because if you do it here and you don't do it there, you do it there, people are just gonna drive
Yeah, well, that's Garfield County, so
Well, I know that, but I would like to see if, let their rationale clearly.
talk to John Martin.
I don't have
Um,
all that.
Regarding
tell you.
politics and public
Talk to
health,
John
is there
Martin,
anything
he'll
on
tell
there
you.
regarding
No,
climate
yeah, they'll tell
anxiety?
you.
Yeah, so, or
That's next.
well, I think Karen just said, just say climate change, because there's all sorts of aspects there around climate change that will be coming up in the next legislative session, or at least we fully expect to. We may bring some efforts back as well. I don't know if you all are familiar. I'm on the NACCHO Climate Change Board. So we have a meeting in October where we're all getting together to discuss our efforts, but that's an opportunity for me to look at other jurisdictions that are on the board and see what efforts they're doing, and then kind of make a decision about, does this make sense for us? And so it's a good learning opportunity for me at the same time. So.
You should run that by Kelly, because Kelly and Brian Paul are going to the planning conference and doing a presentation on what Pickens County's doing.
Ah.
So that you coordinate your
There you go.
efforts.
I'll touch base with you.
Okay,
So she may have your presentation all ready for you. You can just,
there you go.
And if,
Okay.
if we or I can support you on going to that conference with anything, in some way, it'd be interesting to hear more. Anything else on that
Yep.
list?
Two more things. Title 10 and the gag rule around Title 10 funding for Planned Parenthood. And there's a current gag order in place around abortions and even being able to discuss abortions and the options. So Karen indicated that Planned Parenthood, there are no Planned Parenthood agencies in the state of Colorado that receive Title 10 funding. But this does affect local public health agencies. So again, the gag rule doesn't allow for us to discuss abortion options with clients.
so our community health, Liz, they could not discuss that as part of a list of
I,
items.
I do not know if Liz receives Title X funding.
I think
If
that
she
would
does,
be-
then she would. There is.
Yeah,
that's what I
so,
thought.
yeah, I
she
think we need to
can't.
get involved in this then.
Yeah. Yeah, so thanks, John. Yeah, any other,
Yeah,
the
it's
only,
a shocking disservice to clients to not be able to
Yes.
provide medically accurate information.
Full scope information.
In a
Yes.
health clinic.
Here's your
It is.
choices, but we're limiting them to one.
yeah.
You said there were two more, though.
Well, the last one, and Steve already touched on it, and it's not really, it's a legislative effort, and it's around OWTS fees and CCI. That's one of the pieces that they will debate as to
Around what?
whether or not septic system fees.
Oh, I didn't hear all the.
Yeah. OWTS. Sorry,
OWTS.
I'd say that too fast.
OWTS.
Sorry.
The W kind of ran in there.
I was with you, Patty. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, fine. Got it.
Yeah, that's kind of one that's obviously more important to me. Kara just shared a spreadsheet for me that I think CCI has shared that you may get, Steve, but I ran through the numbers for our department based on that, and we have a cap right now in legislation or in statutes, $1,000. Based on the spreadsheet that we used, I should be charging $22.50 for a septic system permit. So to remove that cap, actually, I think is very valuable to our department. It has been. We've been at that limit for at least 15 years. So,
Yeah, that's a different issue than the plumbing,
The plumbing
master
one,
plumber
right.
requirements, but I didn't mention that one. I'm
Right.
glad you brought it up.
yeah. So we'll see. Obviously, that'll be something that if it rises to the level that CCI wants to bring that forward, then, again, our department, I'm available to help with that discussion, because I know there will be several of us that will be that are over that cap, but there are other agencies that are not, and so it'll be more important for several of us to try to get that cap removed. So
I wanted to, just on it, to close it out, if I think anybody else has another comment, that I wanted to make a couple comments. One, regarding the e-cigarettes and tobaccos and vaping. The Juul company, which is the major player in the e-cigarettes and vaping industry, modeled themselves after Marlboro and all their campaigns and how they were going to approach it. Their response to public, outcry, all that has been modeled directly after the Marlboro campaign. And you think, for all the power they have with this vaping campaign and the quick response, we've had 6 deaths now from vaping, related to vaping and popcorn lung or whatever it is. And the quick response, that even our president has suggested that we start banning flavors and vaping, and such a quick response is in sharp contrast to the gun safety regulations, which go nowhere. The gag order on the Center for Disease Control regarding gun safety, where we've lost tens of thousands of lives to gun accidents and the ubiquity of firearms. And it's just such a stark contrast, and I can't help but bring it up. It's stuck in my consciousness that how quickly we respond to a vaping incident, yet the firearm thing just remains an impossible quagmire.
You think the NRA has something to do with that?
It occurs to me
The
that
smokers,
they
you
do.
mean?
We're hoping maybe they'll be imploding on themselves soon.
Well, he just referred it back to the FDA, so
We'll
I
see.
wish
Yeah,
it was
probably,
just-
No, we can't count on anything from there, but we'll see.
Right, yeah.
well, which is 10 years to investigate, but at least he brought it to the forefront of somebody's discussion.
So maybe we can lobby to get the CDC back involved in, analysis of gun incidents.
That's fake news.
Okay. Anything else?
I couldn't resist.
Well, thank you. All right, I think if that's it.
Yep.
That's our, we're going to, I guess we're going to end right now for grassroots, and we're going to stick around for the finality of our executive session in 15 minutes. So unless somebody else has something else to say, we're done. Thanks, grassroots.
thanks.
Thank you.
Kurt.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Kurt.
Kurt.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks. Sorry, I didn't know it was you. I would have tapped you.